Welcome everyone to day 2 of the Brass Spring 2024 Symposium. I'm Brian Garrison-Newton, chair of the Symposium subcommittee. Thank you to our subcommittee members, Christy Cunningham, Doris Jui, Christine Pollock, and Angel Truesdale. All sessions will be recorded and sent out to those who have registered. Please mute your audio and video as we get started. Thank you for spending time with Brass and our presenters today. Now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Christy, to get us started.
Hello, happy Wednesday. Our next presenters are going to talk about re-engineering business librarianship, supporting business research across disciplines. In this, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I'm going to try to moderate that, and we'll hold most of those until the end. So now, if you would, please welcome Liz and Erik from the University of Dayton for this next presentation. Take it away.
Thanks, Christy. I'm going to get my screen share set up here. All right. Hello, I am Liz Grauel. Thanks for having us here today. I am the digital pedagogy librarian and liaison to the School of Business here at University of Dayton. And I'll be presenting today with Erik Ziedses, who is my college and research partner on this project. Erik is the research and scholarly engagement librarian here at UD, and he is also the liaison to the School of Engineering. So we're coming from an academic library, but we recognize that Brass includes folks from all kinds of institutions. So before we get started, we would love to know who you are and what kind of library or organization you're coming from. So if you'd like to share, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll give you just a minute to do that so we can get to know you too. Let's see chat. There we go. Awesome. So kind of a range of types of colleges. Awesome. Very cool. Oh, we have somebody from business school too. Very cool. Yeah, it's awesome that there's people from all over Brass, so it's something that's really cool to see. So our university is a mid-sized Midwestern private school. About a quarter of our students are business students in our School of Business Administration, and I think another quarter of them are in the School of Engineering. So we are firmly Ohioans and serve a lot of students from this area too. So today we're going to be talking about our cross-curricular and cross-disciplinary work here at UD, which we've recently written about in a paper that's going to be published later this summer. So I'll get us started by talking about some of the fluid boundaries around business as a field. And then Erik's going to dive into kind of the crux of some of the research and work we've been doing together, particularly bringing business instruction into engineering classrooms. And then I'll talk about some of the impacts and opportunities that I see for us as business librarians, and we will leave time at the end for discussion. So if you have questions along the way, please drop them into chat. I know Christy will be keeping track of them, and we will do our best to address them at the end, and look forward to hearing from you. So to set the stage, I'm going to talk about what I'm referring to as the undisciplining of business. And if you attended the fall 2023 symposium, you may have heard me talking about the work I'm doing in business information literacy and ways to focus on skills and literacies and competencies that transfer between environments. So not just relevant to the business classroom. And when I say environments, I'm talking a lot about context and perspective and why this is important when we think about cross-discipline and cross-curricular engagements as librarians. So sticking with the ecology theme of environment, today I'm going to build onto that by looking at what I call the full business biosphere. So the collection of different ecosystems where business information and competencies kind of live and transfer between, often in multiple contexts from multiple perspectives. So I'm going to go briefly through the academic, workforce, and enterprise ecosystems just to demonstrate and set up kind of the broad scope of business contexts, both here within the academy where we are and in the larger world. So within the academic ecosystem, business itself, although sometimes it's called a discipline or a type of curriculum, really contains many different disciplines. So this slide lists the curricular units that we have here at UD. Just as an example, some of them are common to other universities. Some universities have more or less. And this is just kind of the high level. It's not going into any like the specialties or minors that we have, but just a way to look at all of the kind of connecting fields within business. And, kind of breaking it down to even more of a meta discipline, even just looking at one specific area, you can see where other fields come into play. This semester I've been working with our finance department, which is something that we don't necessarily get to do so much in the library, or we haven't here in the past. But I've been really engaged with faculty in some of their research, and also with faculty in some of the work they're doing with students. And these 7 areas are just like for the semester, a few of the places where they're crossing over. And sustainability is really a big one that I'm seeing right now, both with some of our faculty who are doing research in green finance, but also with our university's Hanley Sustainability Fund, which is a student-run investment fund that focuses on ESG, or environmental, social, and government-based investing, so responsible investing. And these students are both sometimes new to finance, but also often new to concepts in sustainability. And they are being challenged to really start thinking about the way that firms are behaving and financial activity in context of environmental impact, which doesn't yet really follow any standard. And there's not, until 2025, this is like a new thing in the US, there's no real reporting requirement. So students are having to deviate from some of the more traditional models of thinking about finance and analyzing firm performance, and start to put on the perspective of somebody who is really paying attention to environmental impact. So just an example of something that I've been encountering a lot from the business end. And beyond academic settings, business occupations really exist in a huge range of environments. So kind of sticking with finance as an example, when we look at folks with business degrees and where they land in the workforce, we see that even just one occupation, and for this example is looking at employment data for folks who are in financial management roles, really touches a huge array of industries. So while the core skills or like duties of a financial manager are probably pretty similar across industries, these folks are having to incorporate information from context-specific sources that are really probably relevant to their industry and maybe not many other places. But they also have to output information in ways that can be understood and used in the context of their workplace's industry. But kind of trying to get a little bit distanced from just the academy, a person's degree doesn't necessarily determine their field of occupation. The World Economic Forum does a lot of work in the future of jobs and the future of work and the need for reskilling. And what they found is that almost half of people work in jobs that are unrelated to their formal education. And formal education can mean university as we see it in the US. It can mean just high school education, but overall, this tells us that there's a good number of people that have business degrees and aren't working in business roles. We could also, there's inferences, but also vice versa. There's folks working in business-related fields or doing business-related work that don't necessarily have formal education in that. So, sticking with some of the things that the World Economic Forum gives us, when you look at actual occupations, we know that the workforce isn't really comprised of folks that are coming with this, like, you are going to do this job and you have these skills. So it can be really helpful to think of the workforce as an ecosystem of skills and tasks and things that people are doing rather than degrees. And this is from the taxonomy that the World Economic Forum has put together to kind of try to unify some of the language around how we describe the things that people are doing in the workforce. And so this is just kind of pulling together the skills and aptitudes that are more traditionally thought of, especially in business schools, as like business disciplines, to kind of start pulling them outside of that box of discipline. And we can look at this, kind of based on specific jobs. So I went to the Department of Labor's description of the skills and tasks that somebody in a management analyst role does. And this is a position that is growing really quickly in the US and typically requires a business degree. And looking at this in the same taxonomy, you can see that there's actually more STEM-oriented skills, so these ones highlighted in green, associated with this job than there are those that we would traditionally consider business skills. And that's a pretty significant thing to think about, because this is one of the fastest growing employment fields for folks with business degrees. But also these STEM skills are things that they are approaching from a context of business and what they're doing as business people. And coming at it from another perspective and kind of foreshadowing some of what we're going to be talking about with our work, is looking at the same kind of chart of skills for people in engineering roles. So this is kind of doing the same thing, looking at mechanical engineers and the tasks and things that they're doing, the skills that they're using. And you can see here that there's actually more associated skills with this related to a business field than there were for the occupation that was more traditionally thought of as business. But again, they're approaching the similar kind of tasks, but from the perspective of an engineer. So there is this, this is really important when we're talking about cross-disciplinary, because cross infers that you're looking at something from a different perspective or a different context. So skills can transfer between, but you're going to be approaching them with a different kind of look at how they're going to work, or your expectation for how it operates, or the information should be used. And finally, one of the most diverse fields or ecosystems kind of in terms of education and perspective is what I call the enterprise ecosystem. So this is how I group both entrepreneurial activity, so folks who are starting their own businesses, as well as any kind of organization that has to have some kind of business tactics or operations, because not every company is a business industry company, but every company or organization typically has some business things that they have to do in order to stay on the up and up with taxes and legal infrastructures. So kind of just really focusing this chart here, really focusing on people who are actually early stage entrepreneurs. So people who are starting businesses. It's not just spin-offs of other businesses or new tax IDs. They're really falling into kind of every place on the chart when you think about industry. So it's just important. It's just another way to look at where business information is being used and how. And really, regardless of the industry or the discipline where an idea or a product or service originates, the same set of tactics are really needed in the beginning of an enterprise. And it requires a lot of information that folks haven't been necessarily trained or exposed to finding, in ways that they need to put it together and create information products out of it in order to do the work they want to do. So there's a lot of context switching here. Even when an entrepreneur engages with somebody who is a business person, that person needs to approach each of these items within the context of the thing that is being developed or sold. So here in Dayton, we see these ecosystems collide in several ways, and working kind of backwards from ecosystem to academics. Our university has a really robust entrepreneurship program, especially with its community engagement. So we have what's called the Flyer Pitch Competition, and it's a year-long program where community members can compete for seed funding, and they work directly with students and faculty at UD as they build out their business plans to eventually participate in this pitch competition to get funding for their enterprise. Part of this is also spun out into the Greater West Dayton Incubator, which is an entrepreneurial center that is supported but not owned or operated by the university. And folks who are affiliated with that are often people who just live in the community and are working on some kind of business, and often need support in getting the things together that they need in order to operate that business. So we have our public library, which is a really amazing resource for folks in the community. I even send some students there because they have databases that kind of really complement ours. But they also are engaged with the university, particularly when they're working with a flyer pitch competition. And although our databases aren't licensed for them, it helps me understand what kind of information people need to actually do this practical work that's not just looking in some of our really high-end databases and things that students are going to experience outside of school. And then finally, there's tons of educational collisions happening here and across the country, really. Here at UD, we have one program we'll talk about, which is our technical entrepreneurship minor in the School of Engineering. We also have quite a few curricular or course-based experiential learning opportunities where students from the engineering side are working in kind of business such situations, and folks from business school are working with technical companies or clients. So just places where this is all kind of coming together, and we're seeing those skills need to grow. So for the remainder of our time, we're going to really be looking at the academic ecosystem and specifically places where our engineering programs have been including business curriculum. And it's given our library an opportunity to engage with engineering students in different ways, using different information sources while still remaining separate from the School of Business. And we'll talk about what that also means for the School of Business and my work as a business liaison. So I'll be handing it over to Erik there in a few, but before, we'd like to hear from you. So Erik's going to drop a link to this Mentimeter in chat. You could also scan this QR code if you'd like, but we would like to hear about just the fields for folks visiting your library and where they come from. So this can be just their backgrounds, their contexts, their industries, kind of whatever you see fit to share. And I will switch over so we can look at those answers as they come in. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's awesome to see so many different fields, right? Like so many sciences, and I say, yeah, geography, humanities, medicine, arts. Yeah, I think it really speaks to the range of folks that we are working with and the things that they already know that they want to know. This is awesome. Chat only. I love the everything everywhere. Right. Very cool. All right, so I am going to switch back to our presentation. You can please continue to add to this if you want to, because I now plan on using this. So thank you all very much. So I will switch back to our presentation and hand it over to Erik. Let's make sure I'm comparing the right thing. Can you see what do you see?
No, I see it.
Okay.
I don't see it on the Zoom yet.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Let me figure out how to switch this. All right.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Erik Ziedses. I'm the Research and Scholarly Engagement Librarian here at University of Dayton. I also serve as the liaison to the School of Engineering and all of our physical sciences here on campus. So I want to echo what Liz said and just thank all of you for having us today. Thank you for attending our session. Really excited to be here. So for my section of today's presentation, I'm going to be focusing on a couple different places where business and engineering collaborate. Make sure our slides are advancing here. Okay. So namely in research conducted by faculty members and increasingly within curriculum settings. So I'm also going to be spending some time discussing some of the barriers that prevent these sort of connections from happening and where we believe the library can serve as a facilitator to help scholars and instructors overcome some of these obstacles. So interdisciplinary research is an extremely hot topic at UD right now. For the past few months, I have actually been serving on a campus-wide working group on the topic of artificial intelligence. And as a member of the research and scholarship side of the group, I have been tasked with building an inventory. So gathering all of our past research on this topic and to help make suggestions on how or where interdisciplinary collaborations on this topic can happen moving forward. Moving it more out of the so-called traditional spheres of, say, electrical engineering or computer science, making overtures to some of our colleagues in the humanities, but also capitalizing on some of the already existing cross-disciplinary, research collaborations we've already seen, which includes faculty from the School of Education and Health Sciences, but also several instances from within our School of Business. I just want to show you this diagram right here, which is from data pulled from Web of Science, which is just a quick summary of showing where our faculty are publishing AI-related papers. So we have, like I said, your more typical areas, electrical engineering, computer science. But in the past few years, like I said, we have seen this large explosion of business-related papers on the subject as well. Whoops, and I think I went back. So we have also noticed an increasing number of examples of skill convergence within classes here at UD, and I'm going to speak to what form our involvement with that has taken as well. So why is this important from a research standpoint? So simply put, as illustrated by Liz's section earlier, we've been noticing this cross-disciplinary convergence in the real world for several decades now. And I'm going to be making some references to some of the research that Liz and I did for the paper that she mentioned earlier. So post-World War II, you saw this philosophical merging of engineering and business, especially in those decades right after that. So where public sentiment and opinion started leaning towards the idea of having new advances in science readily available to the populace as part of the common good, and having business and industry kind of be the facilitator to help make that happen. So we're going to be focusing specifically on our work with engineering and business intersections, but in this slide you can also see the convergence of faculty research in a few other fields as well. So the diagram on this page again is just a quick look at the range of disciplinary subject areas where business faculty just here at UD are publishing. So these are, the largest square obviously is within their own field, but the other squares represent where business faculty are also publishing as well. So this again comes from a very non-scientific review of faculty publications in Web of Science, and they don't necessarily indicate cross-curricular research partnerships, but they do point out that business faculty are publishing in a wide range of disciplinary areas, especially engineering and health sciences. Another thing I wanted to touch on real quick was just the concept of innovation itself. Liz and I, in our research, we discovered that this concept itself had been picked apart by researchers over the years, where the definition of innovation now seems to be more of a steady conversation between the fields of engineering and business, and with some also saying that there's the third component of human values helping to drive it. So you can see examples of government bodies issuing declarations that directly address our fields, such as the UN Sustainability Goals, which has applications on both the producer and economic sides of the equation. So these conceptual debates around terminology and universal initiatives to align activities across contexts and environments, they set the stage for finding complementary interests and initiatives in research, and they might even make it easier to find opportunities to collaborate. So the screenshot on this slide is a very small example of what I'm talking about. These are just a few examples of Springer Nature publications that are associated with the UN's Industry and Innovation Sustainability Goal. And as you can see, there are a range of disciplinary publications that meet that category. So interdisciplinary collaboration really allows for the research record to stay caught up with the wider worldwide conversation. And these collaborations ultimately benefit academia by expanding the reach of what is possible within any single discipline. So refer back to my AI group example again. One of our goals in implementing humanities more is implementing our colleagues in humanities and capitalizing on past relationships with business with this sort of work. And so through promoting cross-disciplinary collaborations, we can point scholars who are interested in delving into this field to potential research partners within more STEM-oriented departments that might have decades of experience wrangling with this topic. So combining expertise opens new pathways for research from both theoretical and technological standpoints. Moving on to the curricular world. Students are entering a workforce asking for a more diverse skill set with elements pulled from multiple disciplines. So in our experience, we are seeing a lot of this curricular development and merging happening within the School of Engineering, but it is also important for us to recognize, what elements are missing from each side. On the engineering side of things, we have noticed, perhaps a lack of consultation with the business school or business faculty when it comes to designing some of the more industry-focused engineering courses. These students are expected to learn how to use and interpret business-centric resources and data, but almost just as a supplement to systems management or product design skills that they have to focus on. The same is true in some of the business classes as well, where there's a deficit of material being taught about things like materials, patent information, manufacturing processes, or systems. So here you can see a list of examples of a few courses at UD that illustrate this sort of curricular merging. So IET 317 and EGR 402 are both classes Liz and I have co-taught as part of a cross-curricular instruction partnership. So these are engineering courses that share the same needs as the marketing courses that are listed here, which are ones that Liz has done instruction for on her own. So let's talk a bit about why some of these institutional collaborations might not be happening. So what is preventing them from happening? So referring to a pair of articles that Liz and I came across in our research, and I just want to add, all of our references are going to be available in the Works Cited page at the end of today's presentation. I'd like to specifically refer to the pieces by Siemens, Liu, and Smith, and Roper as well. So both of these articles did a fantastic job of articulating the various obstacles that impede interdisciplinary research or curricular collaboration. And I just want to touch on a couple of those. So first off, there's just the simple human issue of communication. When you're working across disciplines, you're dealing with differing or at times even conflicting vocabularies that can exist. So at times it makes it hard for points to be made across the aisle, so to speak. So Liz and I had an example of this just last week when, I made an observation that when some of my engineering faculty are talking about business, they just seem to use the blanket term industry to cover just about everything. Whereas, and this was kind of used in a very extensive and all-encompassing sense, whereas, working with Liz, and I learned all these more nuanced concepts such as enterprise or, just more business specific vocabulary that I have not seen pop up among some of the engineering faculty that I work with. You might also encounter differing departmental decision-making or evaluative processes, or publishing requirements or mandates calling for required collaborations within departments. And that obviously, stifles some of these cross-disciplinary research opportunities. And you also just can't discount the sheer demand of a full course load each semester, of having to cover, a certain amount of topics that, support class learning outcomes. And then that might not leave a lot of room necessarily for the primary instructor to cover those cross-disciplinary topics. So now that we've identified a couple of places where these collaborations are happening and why they may struggle to come to fruition, I think it's important to, again, ask ourselves why this is important for higher ed. Curricularly, we are talking about practice-focused classes where skill sets from multiple disciplines need to be developed in tandem in order to succeed. These classes place students in scenarios where they have to be an actor in multiple fields, theoretically or in some cases in partnership with real-world clients. Students working through these courses and these types of projects have opportunities to transfer their existing discipline-centered communication and research skills to a new application and are also exposed to the norms of another discipline. This expands their research and learning opportunities while they are here and also exposes them to a range of info and research skills that can help them in the job market post-graduation. So this is where we make our case for the academic libraries as the connecting element. In these relationships, libraries can act as the third place, a flexible, discipline-agnostic area where these needs can be explored and solutions can be devised. So within our department, the Teaching, Research, and Engagement Department, our team of librarians has skills and competencies in each of the disciplines represented on campus, and we remain in contact with these areas through a robust liaison outreach program. So we are not bound by departmental silos, which allows for free exchange of ideas among each other. And we also benefit from our physical proximity to one another. Our offices are grouped together within the library building, which allows for quick, impromptu communication and skill exchange. At times, we are approached by faculty in our areas looking for help in teaching skill sets from other disciplines, which is a signal to us to bring in a more well-versed colleague to contribute. In my case, and in the examples we're looking at in today's presentation, these are situations where I call on Liz, and we get the ball rolling on planning new cross-disciplinary instruction sessions. So our first opportunity for collaborative library instruction came from an engineering course that's been doing this since 2015, and that's the IET 317 for Industrial Economic and Financial Analysis. So in this course, students are broken up into groups and act as an individual company developing a new unique product. In addition to the product design and systems elements native to the engineering curriculum, the student teams must also deliver a full business plan for their product, performing market research and analysis to help build feasible budget documents. So as part of our involvement with this class, Liz and I deliver a co-taught session about the various library resources to aid in this project. So I lead with teaching the students about things like trade journals, patent searching tools, and standards such as ASTM, techniques meant to help them establish their product as a unique invention relevant to their field, while also being in compliance with industry and safety standards. Liz then takes the conversation into the business side, leading with discussions about NAICS codes and industry classification, which helps students identify the industry where their product exists and the role their company plays in the process. She then moves on to market analysis tools such as IBISWorld and Mintel Academic to help students correctly identify target markets and to trace market behavior, volatility, and viability. We leave these sessions also having given students the means to contact us afterwards or to book in-person or digital research consultation sessions. The added benefit of all this, of having multiple librarians, is there's an optical benefit of having more than one librarian in the student's corner, making yourselves available and able to help and acting as an expansion of their research support network. Beyond this, in fall 2023, UD launched its technical entrepreneurship minor, which includes classes that connect students with real industry clients with wildly varying information needs. So I was approached by one of these professors representing this minor to present to their students, but as the conversation progressed and the professor made his needs for the class more clear, it was apparent that this would be another opportunity to bring Liz and her set of proficiencies into the picture. So after these two successful experiences, we began to feel empowered to start seeking out further teaching opportunities that merge our two skill sets. So EGR 402, which is technical innovation and product development, this was the first time where we approached the professors ourselves, pitching our cross-teaching skills and resources as a direct way to support the learning goals of the class. We taught our first session of this class this semester, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to develop it further in future semesters. So we're happy to report that through viewing final project presentations and in staying in contact with professors, that the students in these courses have demonstrated both skill development and resource use. We witnessed engineering students using the vocabulary, utilizing statistics, techniques, and tools from the research, from marketing resources or reports from these tools in order to make the case for their products or clients.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Sorry, we are passing a keyboard back and forth to advance slides, so thank you for hanging with us.
We weren't kidding about physical proximity.
So I'm just trying to wrap up us talking in the next couple minutes so we have time for questions and answers. But I wanted to speak really quickly to how this kind of ties back to our context as business librarians. So, first and foremost here, we're really focused on providing value to our students. They're our reason for being here. They're what I love doing, or it's why I love being here. I know it's kind of a big thing for me. But really in our collaborative work, Eric and I are engaging with students who are in classes with this real specific goal of providing practical and experiential and autonomy building transferable skills, which is really a refreshing departure from the classes where I know many business librarians are asked to come in and just show them how to use tools, which is something I really try to push against. So I just stole this slide from a presentation Eric and I gave earlier this year at UD on this topic. And I wanted to point out the two middle things here. The first thing is that we're learning, and just kind of affirming is that the research skills that our students need across disciplines are far more similar than they are different. And that students really benefit from seeing the research tools of other disciplines, not just because they learn how to use different tools, but because it helps them to think about information in different ways and to really start grasping some of those like framework literacies, like authority is constructed and contextual, for example, information has value, in ways that are much more real world and like very meaningful to them, I think. And it's just really, it's a great argument for information literacy, especially in some of my business classes where they're so focused on the tool skills.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say you got 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So, the cases we share today demonstrate the places where I, as a business librarian, bring business into engineering. And you can see in the course descriptions, like it's pretty clear in the engineering courses where there are business, where either business information is being used or is being created. So that's something that's really been helpful for us in finding some of these classes on the engineering side. And those collisions, we can see like these programs are really interacting with a lot of the same things that I am doing with the entrepreneurship, finance, management, and marketing programs, and also some operations and supply chain management. So it's very cool. I can reuse some of the things I have already, but switch them into a new context. And it's really highlighted, again, the transferability element of information literacy that we need to be bringing into our classrooms. We found that our students both appreciate and use what we're offering them, but they also have a lot of shared struggles in finding and applying and creating information that in ways that make sense. So that sense making and meaning making, regardless of their major. And again, this has really, really helped me advocate for some of the more literacy-based instruction and work I want to do with business students, focusing on skills instead of tools. So really what comes next and what we're looking for ways to develop are places where we can bring some of that engineering context in different context of different industries to the business school. So I grabbed this course listing for our new product development course from our course catalog as an example, but I actually haven't worked with this course. I've worked with several other courses that don't list new product development in their description, but are doing new product development or client work. But I highlighted this part about the product because that's really where I'm seeing a lot of my students kind of hit walls in their research and their use of information is they get very good at finding information that describes industries, that describes companies, some of the data, but they really, when it comes to taking a notional product and building a business plan around it and understanding like the real costs or the real work involved with it, or what kinds of people they would need to consult with or include in their hiring plans, for example, or when it comes to working with real life clients who are in a fully unfamiliar industry to them, they're both failing to do some of the basic background research because I don't think they know where to look. That's what I'm finding is they just don't seem to know where to look on the actual product itself. And this like material design and process part of engineering that Erik has spoken to, that goes into the building and selling of a product. That's something that I'm seeing a lot of my business students kind of fumble when they get to, and not really knowing how to go deeper than just kind of the industry descriptions that are very informative about the economic and market side, but not so much about some of the real costs. So that's a place I would like to start building some of the cross-curricular work back into the School of Business. In the same way we see some of our engineering students really not as engaged or familiar with how to find information about market and demographic things, we really see business students having a hard time understanding the context and nuance of information from the other fields. So that's kind of where we're going next. And then lastly, just for us as librarians, working this way has given us kind of a lot of opportunities to cross-train and be more supportive of our students, especially for Erik and I, given the size of the schools that we support. I was able to, actually one day I had an appointment with a business student that I was not able to make, and I was able to just give it over to Erik. The student didn't show up, so that was a bummer. Eventually I did see her, but I was like, you know what, I can't make this. Erik, are you available? Because it was a pretty specific thing, but it was something that now we're both familiar with. And it's also opened the doors to some of those partnerships pedagogically with some of our faculty members who have been a little bit less sure how to interact with the library. And it's helped us engage in some of the campus conversations about these areas of curriculum and research that aren't really discipline specific, including AI, as Erik was talking about, and some of just the core information needs of our students. And with that, we'll open up to any questions or discussion. Yeah, so I guess we can get started with that. And I can go back through chat if that's easier. Oh, nothing in chat. Okay. I did have one direct question about Mentimeter and whether we subscribe to it, and that kind of goes to my digital pedagogy side, less of my business side. I actually have a subscription to it because I'm trying it out as a possible alternative to Jamboards, which we've used a lot. I like it a lot. There are some limitations, but it is pretty cool and affordable for an educator license. Anyone else has questions? Yeah.
Sadly, yes. October 1st of this year.
I've been exporting a lot of them.
So I have a question since, well, okay, here, one just came in. How do you navigate unrealistic faculty expectations? Like want you to teach business planning in 15 minutes.
Yeah, so I think fortunately on the engineering side, they are not asking us necessarily to teach business planning. They're asking us to show the students how to find the information for the business plan. And I think the faculty that we have worked with are, they're pretty aware of like the limitations of what we can show them. Yeah, I think maybe more comes from, I think more of the limitation comes from helping them understand how to put the information together. So like actually like the structure of building a business plan, they're pretty good at showing. I think the unrealistic expectations are more almost on behalf of the students, because these are such large projects that require the students to learn not just like new information fluency, but also new ways of like creating a report. So I think that's where I've seen when the students, and Erik, I'll let you ask me that too, but when the students come to us, it's more like I'm going back to professors and being like, hey, you know, your students are like doing these things in parts and don't really understand how they work together. So I'm on one-on-one consultations working with them to see where like, you know, it doesn't make sense if you guys aren't like sharing information. It's gonna look much different. So it's just kind of an ongoing conversation. Erik, I don't know if you have.
I was just going to say that, you know, some of the services we provide beyond the 75-minute instruction session we have is we take the worksheet that they did in class and send follow-up emails with additional information and suggestions or strategies they might want to consider employing. But I will say, you know, as the person who does liaises with this department and gets the research consultation requests after these sessions, yeah, it's these are the ones that where we see the most coming in. And it's also the classes where they're coming in for the highest number of sessions over the course of the semester. And I think that is, I'm fortunate to say that does seem pretty well understood, that they can come to us for that sort of sustained help beyond the one shot. So.
So my question is, are you planning on expanding this to other disciplines besides just business and engineering, or maybe business and other topics? And both of you are on mute.
Yeah, I was muting to make sure we didn't have echo. Yeah, we are. The paper that we have written talks about a little, like we focus on the cases that we worked on together based on our liaison areas. But part of both of our roles, so Erik's role is with research and scholarly engagement, so he's doing it on the research side, and my role in digital pedagogy, more on the pedagogical side, is looking for these places where like digital pedagogy is very traditionally humanities based, but I've been really working on places where I can bring some of those same concepts over into the business school. And based on like some of the interactions I get to have there, puts me in a bit of a unique position where I know of activities happening in some of the humanities classes that would be very beneficial for some of the business students to be involved in, but also vice versa. So this semester we have a history class where some of the kids in the class are actually international business majors with history minors, and they're doing a history project, but building a business plan out of it. So that's actually been one place where I've gotten to like really kind of work for the first time outside of the professional school and more in like the College of Arts and Sciences to help the business students, because they're having a really hard time thinking about kind of reconciling like their business focus, like I build this plan, they do this thing, and then the real like impact and human aspect of it. So yes.
We have
And
one
I had an
question.
opportunity this semester as well, where I was asked to present to a biomechanical engineering course.
Uh-huh.
And this is one where they were required to use a great deal of medical databases. So I followed that same kind of collaboration path and brought in our health sciences librarian to co-teach with me on that one. So that's been my experience teaching outside of just this collaborative relationship with Liz so far. So
Awesome. We are out of time. There is one more. Somebody is asking if you can share a link to your article. And then
Yes, we will send, it's being published this summer, and we will send it to Angel as soon as it's done.
okay. All right, one last question, and then we're gonna have to stop is, do you work with the university's Office of Technology and Entrepreneurial Partnerships? And if so, how?
It is a very, so, yes and no. Can you mute?
yeah, I did.
Okay, yes and no. Because it's like a little bit separate how our university works with it. There's like an IP department, which is the tech transfer, and then we have an entrepreneurial department that does a lot of its own kind of work. So I work a lot with the entrepreneurial department. The tech transfer part of it is kind of like it's shifting a lot here, so kind of, but not, yeah, not in the same way.
Thank you all. This was a very good presentation. I'm gonna turn it back
I
over
know
to
it's
Brian.
still a pretty new program, but I'd be interested to see how our technical entrepreneurship programs begins growing out of the School of Engineering and seeing what connections it makes with other units on campus.
Okay. Thank you too, and I'm gonna turn it over to Brian to close us out for this session.
Thanks so much, Liz and Eric. That was awesome. Thank you, Christy. So we'll be back in 15 minutes or so for the 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific presentation. Would you like to, Doris has posted the survey in the chat once again. Is there anything you'd like to say about that, Doris?